Hi, I'm Michelle Thomas, and you're listening to the EdTech podcast. Actually, what is this that I'm sitting on? She says it's the iPads. I says, what do you mean the iPads?
Hi everyone, and welcome to the EdTech podcast. A big shout out to the team behind the Nordic EdTech conference, which I'll be chairing in early December, plus Hannah Wilson at Women Ed, who recorded an epic near 2-hour chat with me this week. This week's podcast is with Michelle Thomas, Executive Head at the New Wave Federation of 3 primary schools in Hackney, London. We're in conversation about leadership, ed balls, being an Australian in Stokey, boiler maintenance, being a working mum, and taking a school from special measures to outstanding.
Along the way, we've managed to create a really strong vision around, that we're redefining learning.
What role does tech play in all of this, and how can we ensure tech is a form of enrichment and does not extend the attainment gap?
I'm a big believer of learning from other people.
Michelle's speaking at EdTech event Bett in January in London, along with Abdul Churn from the ESA Academy and Keith Budge from Bedale School, on why innovation is for the whole school and not the reserve of a few teachers. You can find out more about that by looking up the School Leaders Summit at Bett 2017 in collaboration with TES. Before that, Michelle was running TeachMeet Resolution at Woodbury Down School on the 12th of January. You're invited to come along and pledge your own resolutions for 2017, or you can follow on Twitter. Find out more and register at TeachMeet Resolution on Eventbrite, and if you're a tech company listening in, why not offer up something for the prize draw? The second contributor to the podcast is Neil Melville, a CAS Master Teacher and Federated Assistant Head Teacher working for the New Wave Federation. Our discussion focuses around the cross-curriculum aspects of coding and podcasts for education, as well as recommended thinkers in this space. I do hope you enjoy this discussion, and a big shout out to all the team at New Wave Partnership. It was a pleasure to visit your school and meet a team with so much energy and verve right on the doorstep of the EdTech podcast. For those interested, the forward schedule for 2016-17 for the EdTech podcast themes and ways to get involved is now available. For listeners, I will be asking for your vote on which topic areas to focus on, so watch out for that soon and make sure you get your vote heard. Don't forget to subscribe, share and follow the EdTech podcast, and see you back here next time for more chats with Marit Rossi, Global Teacher Award nominee on Finland and Maths. So very exciting. I am just behind Church Street in Stoke Newington, and
Stokey for the locals.
Stokey for the locals. And are there many Australians here?
No, very few. Myself and another teacher, Joel, but he's going back home this year. He's going back home, so I'll be all by myself. We've had a couple of Australian children, but no real. There isn't an Australian community, so I'm on my own, but it's okay.
That's sad times, but we're going to talk about that. There's a nice
times,
violin
being played.
Yeah, so
by a South African. So,
so we're here with Michelle Thomas, and you're the Executive Head Teacher of the New Wave Federation.
That's correct, Sophie.
So first off, can you tell us a little bit about the New Wave Federation and the schools within it?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's 3 schools in the New Wave Federation. There's Graysbrook, where you are today, in the back of Stokey. We have Shackerwell, which is in the back of very up-and-coming Dalston, just off Kingsland. And we have what we affectionately call the big school, Woodbury Down, which is in the Manor House estate up at Finsbury Park. Okay. So they are 3 schools that share myself, and we also have a great ability, being federated, as being able to share resources, because we have one joint budget. And the way we do that is really by offering children some great specialisms that you wouldn't find in primary schools. And one of them for us is around our technology and our innovative use of technology. So we've been really lucky over the last few years to build up a wealth of talent amongst my staff. and really uplift the children with a range of skills that they'll be able to apply when they go on in life. I mean, I think the biggest thing about the Federation for us is that we believe it's excellence for all. So every day we want the children to have excellent opportunities given to them, and technology and the style of teaching that we do has been a really great example of how we've been able to do that while still maintaining and ticking all the boxes that we have, because we're still, even though we're a federation, we're not an academy, and so we're still under local authority. We're in Hackney here.
Yeah.
And so, we still have our tick boxes that we have to do, but how we've managed to sort of maintain that as well as become quite innovative in what we do it's been a really great story and a journey for us as well, considering where the schools have come from.
Well, actually, yeah, I mean, that was one of my questions later on, or points, is the recent announcement about as a borough, Hackney's schools achievement and that just being quite, phenomenal. And I guess when I started the podcast, that was, the first episodes were looking at sort of Hackney's journey over the last sort of 15 or so years, and how you've now got lots of tech in the borough and how the two are interacting or not. But I mean, you mentioned the Federation and that you're not an academy. For those listening, what type of schools are they? And so what's the kind of structure as a federation?
What does that mean? So what that means is we have one governing body. So we have one governing body that oversees the running, the financial aspect of the three schools. We also have, but that's not necessarily all federations, we also only have one budget. So all of the money is pulled into one budget, and one school effectively becomes the banker school, and everything comes out of that school. But effectively, a federation is that you are it's a legal binding documentation. So as a school, you are joined and you have to, if you want to, so you make an application to the DFE to become a federation, and if you decide that that isn't something that the school's going to go forward with, then you have to actually apply to dissolve the federation as well. It doesn't carry anything like an academy around charitable status or anything like that, so we're not a limited company, so we still are a grant maintained school, so all of the buildings are owned by the borough, so that's probably a difference, key difference from an academy where you would own everything on the site once you become an academy. The federation really has been about much longer than academies, and it's a very similar model. It's based on the idea of schools working together, achieving more, sharing leadership potential, as well as growing a lot of talent within the schools that you can share amongst the schools and support other schools as well. So originally I was the head teacher of Graysbrook, where you are today, and I'm a national leader. So I was originally asked to go and work and support the head teacher at the time at Shacklewell in 2010, as the school was facing some challenges. And the head teacher then moved on. He went back to New Zealand, actually. And I then became the executive head teacher of that school. So both schools then, for a time being, just worked in partnership, and then the two governing bodies decided to unite and federate. And then we joined with Woodbury Down in a very similar situation, where I was asked to go and support the school, help it around standards and leadership, because there was no head teacher there at the time. And we decided to, after 2 years working in partnership, to bring that school into the federation that we had. So the name came out of that, because we could no longer call it the Federation of Graysbrook, Shacklewell and Woodbury Down, too much of a mouthful. So we came up with the idea, the school's only formally federated in March 2016, and we came up with the idea about New Wave, because we felt that we were always trying new things, and we would create a ripple in the schools to try and our big thing as leaders, I always talk to my leaders about trying to create a ripple. Sometimes it might be a big splash, but other times it's just like a little drop, which is a seed that starts many amazing things in education for us.
Wowzers. And what's the time frame of that as well? So that whole journey, how long have you been involved in this school?
Okay, all right. So 2009, I came to Graysbrook. It was my second headship, and it was a school in special measures. And at the time, it was doing not very well in special measures. It had a number of visits from Ofsted. Their monitoring visits, and the school had not been making any progress. So they decided to advertise, the local authority decided to advertise for a head teacher. after the school had been in special measures for 18 months, because at the time they were trying different variations of leadership and it wasn't having the improvement that was needed. It was also an interesting time because Ed Ball's and Yvette Cooper's children were in the school.
Okay.
And at that time,
so he wasn't on Strictly Come Dancing.
He wasn't on Strictly at that time. However, he was the education secretary because there was a Labour government at that time. So it was interesting. So it was very high profile to come and take the school on. And I think many people said to me, "Oh, Michelle, are you sure? You know, because if you don't turn it around, that could be the end." And I think it was because I used to drive past the school every day to go to my headship in Islington. And I always wondered, because it was in the paper a lot, due to the fact that they were both parents of the school that was in special measures. I thought, do you know what, let me go and have a look. When I saw the headship come up, let me go and have a look at that school. I'm intrigued. And I came in and just felt like my heart sank as soon as I came in. I saw these children, really bright children, completely disengaged with learning, and they had a norm had created in the school where what was happening was good enough, and it clearly wasn't good enough. So I guess my moral purpose took over, and I decided that that wasn't going to be something that I was going to allow happen. I applied for the headship, and then I turned up in September and arrived with gusto. And then we had an inspection from a monitoring visit in the December, and they took the school from special measures to good in the few months, and then we were re-inspected fully in 2012 and went to outstanding. So it's been it's been an interesting journey.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been an interesting journey. So, we're really proud of the school and the ability for the school. It's a national teaching school that's been able to support other schools. We're very passionate about collaborating with other people as well, because I don't want my staff to see themselves in a bubble of perfection, because we're purely not, it's not perfect. When people come and visit, I want them to know that this is a school on a day-to-day basis. So we're not putting on show. This is exactly what happens every single day, and we're very passionate about that.
And as an executive head teacher, what's your role that's been created here?
Okay, so I think my heads would say to you, it's a bit like Michelle throws a handbag down and arrives in the school and decides she's going to do something, walk around the school. My official role is a strategic oversight of the schools. However, like I guess all teachers, I can't help myself. I'm a control freak, and I want to get involved in more things than I should probably get involved in. I see a lot of my role as, checking on things to make sure that the ethos and the I guess it is a brand, or the structures that we've put in place are working. It's great for my heads because they've got a mentor at the drop of a hat that can help and support them. Already this morning, one of my heads has phoned me twice, and she's having a bit of a tough time, and with children and other things happening in the school today. And straight away I can refocus her, and make some decisions that sometimes they're not sure about what to make. So I always see my role as the one that, I guess it does stop with me, but my job, I find it really fulfilling because I loved being a teacher, and now I see myself having a massive class of teachers that were like my children. So, I see myself as a big coach and mentor for staff, and I like to do that. So I spend a lot of my time working with my leaders, the teachers, and just really, finding out what's working and what's not working, because I'm a big system person, and I like systems in place, but I like hearing, their feedback on if it isn't working, how can we make it work, because it's a tough life being a teacher.
I was going to say, actually, because we're sat in your office and there are, it's really great to see on your shelf behind hundreds of leadership books within education. So you've got the John Hattie's and the Alison Peacocks, and was it Andy Buck?
Andy Buck. Great read. As I said, I'm a
Mary
big fan of that one.
So there's the reading list that we usually do, all complete. I suppose for those that don't have that executive head teacher structure in place, how can they get the mentorship or the support when they're feeling a bit isolated? Or did you have any experience when you were a head teacher where you didn't have that?
For sure. Yeah. It's a lonely job. Hence why I was really keen for the role that I've got to be created. I think the hardest thing, you had to seek out a lot more. When I was a head, when I first became a head as well, my local authority did give me a mentor, and he was a hugely experienced head. I think we probably had the most polar opposite leadership styles, but I could respect him for what he knew that I knew I didn't know. And, some of the ideas that he told me at the time, I probably thought, oh, gosh, not a chance. But, I think a lot of the time it's quite a lonely job. It's not as collegiate as you were as a teacher, where you had the person next door or a team of teachers around you if you had a bad day. There's no one as a head. So that's why I'm so passionate about making sure that more people want to be heads, hence the leadership books, and hence the constant talking to my leaders about the role of a head. And I think the hardest thing as a head is the loneliness and not having someone to talk to. I was lucky. I sought them out, so I was quite proactive. I, would search out networks of people and try and get it that way. And then I guess because I'm Australian, so, I like to talk. You would make a connection with some people maybe at a meeting, and then those people became my colleagues. Some of those colleagues I'm still in contact with now, and we've all gone on different journeys, throughout our sort of headship career.
So it's not necessarily through the associations out there, and
I think it's quite hard. I don't think it's as structured as it should be. And I know, Dame Alison is created the College of Teaching, and that will definitely be a big aspect. I'm sure, that sort of mentoring and ability to have mentors available to you, especially when you take on a headship, because it is so different. I can't explain how different it is to being a teacher. Things that I didn't even understand about health and safety, because obviously we're educationalists. I don't really understand what temperatures boilers need to be for the school to work and not work. But I do obviously know all of those informational pieces now. But yeah, so it's a very different job.
Yeah, you haven't got any books on like boiler maintenance?
No, boiler maintenance, no. And how many times things have to be checked for asbestos, and it's amazing. I was lucky too. My husband's a builder, so I would go home and ask him, because sometimes I think people were hoodwinking me, especially, your premises staff, when they would tell me things, I'm thinking, I'm not sure about that. So I would have to go home and check, and double check and see things. But, and I think I'm a big believer of learning from other people, because I'm very much a learner that way. I like to see it and look at it and take from it like that. And I think that's the beauty of federations, of academy trusts, where you do have a much stronger leadership team, which if you're a single school by yourself, I think it's quite tough.
So that leads me quite nicely into my next question, which is, I think you would consider yourself a connected educator. So in the sense that you're quite enthusiastic about the potential of technology and innovation in education. How did you get to that conclusion? Okay,
that's another interesting story. I wasn't highly technical, and I wasn't thinking that was a career, as a journey. I was very focused on standards in my schools. It was all about reading, writing and maths and getting them to these standards. And what happened was, in 2010, I went to Shacklewell, and there was I thought it was a toolbox. And when you're not sure what something is and you keep walking past, and it was sitting in the business manager's office. And at one point, I actually sat on this thing that I thought was just a black toolbox. It had never been open. I'd never seen it, anyone using it. Thought it was just something that she was using to be a doorstop. Lo and behold, 3 months into my reign over there as an executive head, I sat myself down on this box and said to her, I said, Alia, I said, actually, what is this that I'm sitting on? She says, it's the iPads. I says, what do you mean the iPads? She says, it's the 30 iPads that the local authority had given the school. I said, you must be joking. And so, lo and behold, it was a toolbox. It looked like a toolbox. It's not. It was the very first, I imagine, iPad storage units. Anyway, so I took myself off the box, opened it up, and there they were, 30 iPads. And I promise you, Sophie, they had not been out of that box since I had been there for 3 months. And I said, how long have we had them in this school? She says, something like 14 months. I said, you must be joking. No. Apparently there was an initiative where the local authority had obviously got a pot of money and had a vision around putting technology into schools. Unfortunately, in the busyness of what happens in environments, those people that originally put them in had moved on, and of course nothing happened. And so in this school was this great resource. So I thought, wow. So I contacted the local authority, and at the time there was an ADE called Aaron Webb working for the local authority, and I contacted him and said, listen, I've got these 30 iPads. What am I supposed to do with these 30 iPads? What is this all about? So I got him in and he started talking to me about it. And when you have a light bulb moment, I started to think, because I was in a school where the children, Shacklewell children, were very, very, very bright, but very unmotivated. And he started to show me, he just came in and had a couple of meetings with me really about the potential of what they could do. And he gripped me, and I thought, wow, and I take a lot to be gripped. But he gripped me, and I started to twink, and think about things that those iPads could do with the children, particularly at that school, that had sort of got very disengaged with learning, and behaviour had become challenging, and the teachers were very much struggling with something that was going to be the hook for them. And I started to see those as the hook. So that's where the journey started. Aaron then ended up coming in, I think, once a month to support the school and getting these iPads out of the toolbox that I was actually sitting on and getting them into classrooms. And it just went on from there. I then convinced Aaron, I think about 2 years later, 2012, about 2012, to come and work for me. I said to him that, you could have far better capacity by coming to work and, really put some of your great ideas into practice. So he joined me. And that was the start of the digital learning journey for the school in 2012. So that's where the journey started.
And what did you use those iPads for in the beginning?
In the beginning, I would say they were a bit of substitution. I would say they were, teachers would take them in and, it was a little bit like the iPad time. Let's book the trolley out and get the iPad trolley and everyone get the iPads out. And it was a bit of a novelty. But it did create a spark of interest with children. And what I started to notice was that children were taking learning in different ways than what we as teachers may have predicted to happen. So I started to see the potential of how you could really open up learning. So the first thing I did, one of the very first things I did was I took the iPads out the trolley and put them into I divided them into classrooms. So because I wanted to get this idea away of it being a special time and it being a special opportunity, that it actually was an opportunity that's there the whole time. So that's one of the first things I did, was got rid of the trolley and put them in the classrooms. And the teachers, obviously were a bit like, whoa, what are we supposed to do with these things? So that's where the training, and then we started the vision of what we wanted learning to look like. And it's just grown from there. We now have one-to-one iPads in Year 5, so in all of my classrooms. So that's over 180 iPads, Neil. Yep. And 180 iPads in one year group, and then in all the other year groups there's 10 iPads. So over 3 schools, that's a fair amount. I think we're at, probably close to 700 iPads. So that's been a journey for us. We're in 2016. The journey started in 2012, and along the way we've managed to create a really strong vision around it being, that we're redefining learning. That it's not something that we would just want to happen at, certain times. There are obviously these opportunities where you've got to, the very young children, for example, you would see them much more being taught how to use an iPad, whereas in the other classrooms, it's very much part and parcel of what they will do. And often teachers, they're out and it's up to the children to choose. We've learned a lot along the way. I think when we first started with the iPads, we probably had, hundreds and hundreds of apps, because we were just downloading App Happy. And it wasn't then that we realised that wasn't the way to go. And we have a very core number of apps, very few apps that have that potential to work across subjects, because that just creates that seamless sort of learning that we were looking for, that we wanted children to be very confident and use their skills across a range of subjects and not just have the tutor app or the times table app. For them it was much more about how to app smash and move one app into another opportunity. So, to really take their learning further. The biggest thing we wanted the iPads to do for us was to make learning independent and get them to collaborate, work together, and just be able to take learning to another place that we couldn't do as teachers. If we could do that, I would say to staff, for example, when we went one-to-one into a classroom recently in year 5, 2 of the teachers came back and said, the writing's not very good, now that we're on the iPads. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, it's taken them ages to write, the narrative that they wanted them to do. And I said, well, why are you writing it on an iPad? I said, how fast can you type on an iPad? They saw one finger. I said, exactly, it's going to be the same thing, I said, don't use an iPad if it's much quicker on pen and paper. What you could do is then, after they've written it in their book, take a snapshot, annotate it then into, in one of our Explain Everything apps so a peer can assess it. I said, think about the use of the technology. Don't have it replacing something because that's not going to take it anywhere. And, so we're still learning.
And can the iPads be used outside of the classroom?
Everywhere.
So they can take them home?
They can't. I haven't got that far yet, Sophie. I'm a bit scared about that. We've just moved on to a managed system. So before that, it was crazy. We had them all, we didn't know where they were. So now we know where every iPad is at any given moment in the building through my digital team all know where they are. They have it on a managed system. So we haven't got that far yet where we're letting them go home. I mean, obviously that's the next step. But, you got to remember, if I talk to some of my colleagues at Apple who have been with us on the journey, they will say to me, Michelle, didn't you tell us in 2012 that you would never be a one-to-one school? And I said, 100%. It's just that, I think you've got to have the right time, the right place, and the right mentality around something. So we're not quite ready yet, Soph, to let them go home.
All to come. So I guess one thing that's really interesting, I looked at a report recently that BESA release every year. And it seemed to indicate that spend on devices, obviously across schools budgets are being squeezed, but spend on devices is possibly one of the areas where that's going to dip, but that actually the appetite or if spend is going to get reallocated is around finding quality digital content. So there also, as a kind of narrative, it seems to be that perhaps some schools have already purchased those devices, and obviously those cyclically need replacing, but that now that, okay, well, what is the content to go on them? And, is that something constantly that you're looking out for, or are there any of those apps that you would recommend to peers and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I'm a big fan of Twitter, and I've only been on Twitter, and I should have gone on it years ago. I've only been on Twitter not even a year, and what that's opened up to me is a wealth of hints and tips of, what's the app, what's the app autonomy, what does that look like, digital content. And, so I say to everyone, join Twitter. It'll tell you so much. I think some of the apps we use, everyone will go, oh yes, of course, and we use, one of the big ones we use a lot would be Explain Everything. I think that's one that's seamless for the very young children to the older children. You can use it and have different aspects. The children love green screening because that takes into another dimension to be able to, it's a real wow, isn't it? That's a real hook when the children realise the weather report on television actually isn't the weather report, and they realise they can do it themselves and be transported to the pyramids. I think they're, seeing their eyes light up. The green screen app, Doink, is the one that we use. Yeah, cool. It's amazing. Yeah, very simple for the children to use. And, we all thought that, we like anything, we thought you had to have a special screen. It's a green sheet, and we can put it up anywhere. But that has the potential to wow children into a volcano. They record that they're at the site of the dinosaurs, watching their back and their faces drop because behind them suddenly is these dinosaurs coming alive, which is actually a green sheet, but it's it's potential of what you've dropped behind it as a background. So, some of the others that we use hugely with the younger children is Puppet Pals. They enjoy that. We do a lot with Book Creator. And, because that's potential of taking one aspect of learning and putting it and publishing it to somewhere else. You can publish it on the iBook store and other people can see your work. There's a lot, we have, we do have a range of different ones that we would use a lot. We also have some of the coding ones. iMovie was probably the first one I got staff into because we showed them how to make a trailer. And staff all went off on on the first inset day and spent an hour making a trailer of introducing themselves to the children that were going to be in their school, in their class next year. So, I mean, some of the coding ones are some of the ones that we've just started to really delve into. Swift Playgrounds. So there's a range of ones that we have used. What we're looking at in regards to digital content is how we can then seamlessly provide that for the children in a quicker fashion rather than going through a search engine. Is there something else that we can have? So we ask questions a lot, and we ask for advice. So I contact people that, are really passionate, like yourself, about how can we get something done? How can we do something quicker with the children? So it saves the teacher time, but also is compatible with some of the skills that the children are using, because it's really important for us that the skills are what we're aiming these children to be able to do. Yeah. So it's not so much, we don't want to feed them content in the sense of they can only use the iPad or they can only use the laptop or the PC. They have the skills to access the technology, because obviously when they grow up, the technology is probably going to look far different to what it is now. Because certainly I may be Australian, but there definitely wasn't any computers when I was in school.
And you talked about CPD before. Do you have a kind of best practice approach to that? Because I think that seems to be, one of the biggest problems is that, like you say, with the iPads that get brought in, they're there. Teachers aren't even aware, or they're hesitant to use them, either because perhaps if it's on their own phone, they're happy to play around and it breaks and it doesn't matter. But they almost need that kind of leadership to say it's fine, just trial it. Or
100%. It is. I do some talks to schools now about vision, vision with technology, and it has to come down to leadership, because that's the first thing that, when I go and, speak to schools that are struggling because the iPads are sitting in a box or on a trolley or somewhere, I say, let me speak to the person that's in charge of that. And they'll say to me, Mashal, it's me and no one else in the school. So it can't be one person's job. So what we did way back in 2012, it wasn't a special career path, it was everyone's career path. It became part of our CPD, it became part of the way we do things in our schools. It was the appraisal system was geared around the use of technology. So whether you were the PE leader, the maths leader, everyone had to think about how to use technology, and I think that's what was key for us. It became part of what we do, not an extra or an add-on. That's when it becomes difficult. I think one of the quick wins that we had was showcasing. And that's where I found some of the people that I'm super lucky now. I have an amazing team of digital team that all have different skills. Some are great with iPads. Some are hugely brilliant with coding and the mechanics and the technical sides of technology, like Neil. So, but how did I find these people? It's a lot of it was through this showcasing that we did, which was basically like a get up and show. We in the very beginning, we had a staff meeting dedicated once a month to a showcasing of what had happened in your classroom, and it was very non-threatening. You didn't have to do it if you didn't want to do it, but there was a 5-minute slot available. Stand up the front and just show something that you think went well and why it went well using technology. So
it's almost like an internal TeachMeet.
Totally, it was there. Yeah. It was an internal TeachMeet, and one of the very first ones. One of my teachers, who was an NQT at the time, called Cassie Williams, got up and she blew us all away. She had the year 2 class. She's an NQT. They were challenging her. And she showed us how she had got 2 reluctant writers to write through the use of technology. 3 years later, she became an Apple Distinguished Educator. So, I was really proud of her journey as she continues to grow. But I uncovered talent just by getting people to come up. As you say, it was like a little internal teach meet. The first few, I had to beg a few people to get up. By the third month, it was literally, I could have gone on for hours. Everyone wanted to get up. Everyone had something to say. And it was so, and it created a real hub and bubble. And that was definitely a great win in our first year. We still try as much as we can, don't we, Neil, to have one now. We're 3 years on, and we'll devote one at least every half term to showcasing, where we just leave it open. However, we never forget the importance of CPD. We always go back to it. We're always, and we've got some very skilled practitioners. So we have a pathway now. They call it a surf school. I think you digital teams have called it a surf school. So there's people that are on the ripples, that are just, still at the bottom end of trying to do things. Then we have the tidals, which are in the middle, and then you get the tsunamis that are just flying and ready to take off. And so we have more of a tailored CPD package now as well.
And who do you use for your CPD? Is it a variety of people?
Completely in school, although I'm really keen, I'm lucky, I've got a really great team. However, for example, today we have AKA, the ICT evangelist, Mark Anderson, working at one of my schools for 2 days. So every now and again, I make sure we invest in having some expertise in the schools as well, because I just, it gives everyone a bit of freshness to see something a little bit different. So I will, contact people to say, can you come in and do something around whatever it is that our focus might be. So I develop relationships with people, and we've had a really great result.
Next question. How can we ensure that if we use technology, the benefits go to those who need it most?
Okay, I think if we invest in technology, you need to be clear why. So I say, have the vision first. There's no point, the how will come, and people will say, how do you get the money? You can work around that. You've got to know why, because that's the trouble. I think we've already said, when I'm getting the iPads because up the road's got the iPads, and we want to have the iPads to compete with the school up the road. And was well, actually, why? Why do you want it? You've got to know why you want the iPads or the technology or whatever you've chosen to come into the school. It's very important that you know that the vision is there. So to ensure that you have that equitable distribution, you've got to know why all the time. I think for me, it's always making sure that you're checking. I'm always checking to see that we're always making sure that, team teaching. Neil does a lot of team teaching with staff. So he would report back to me, say, those iPads or, the Chromebooks are never out the cupboards. And, so I would know, and we'd say, okay, what's the problem? Let's see the barrier. Why isn't that happening? I mean, the children would tell us straight away as well if they, if they haven't seen any of the technology out and about for a bit.
Network of moles in the classroom.
They quickly. But I think, things like making them digital leaders has been a really great thing. And Neil could talk to you more about that because he's done a tremendous amount of work with the Woodbury Down children and being digital leaders. And I think, as I said, it's the ether of the school. It's the ethos, it's the way we do things. So
do you have many sort of pupil premium students?
Yes.
I suppose it goes back to the question about whether they're allowed to take things home and whether they have that connectivity in the home as well, and whether, it can, that gap can extend if they don't, and that kind of thing.
I think in regards to that's why we do a lot of enrichment. We literally just had a staff meeting yesterday, led by Neil and another one of my colleagues, one of my assistant heads, and it's important for us to really target those children, the pupil premium children. We do get a significant amount of money in all the three schools, Woodbury Down in particular, over £300,000 a year. So those children deserve something extra, and so we're very conscious that it doesn't just get waffled into the budget and eaten up by other things. So we offer children a wealth of opportunities, and we specifically sometimes will target that group of children. Especially at the moment, we're looking very carefully at those children that are eligible for pupil premium that are very bright, that may not be getting the opportunities to further themselves even more. So, for example, we use the Brilliant Club. where those children are specifically children that are targeted at a high level, where we open up opportunities for them to work, go and visit Oxford University, to be mentored by PhD students. So it gives them that aspiration that, you know, anything is possible. And I think that's the sort of the overarching motto, I'd say, around enrichment for us, is anything is possible. Whether you choose to take that is up to you, because you've got to have that inner determination to do it. Our job is to ensure that you understand the possibilities that are out there in many different fields as well. So I know there's a lot of work around STEM as well in the schools. So, you know, how are we making sure that the children are aware of all the engineering jobs and the science jobs, and the girls understand that these opportunities are all there for them as well as the boys as they go on, because obviously we leave them and they go on to secondary schools, and we just hope that we've given them the skills, the potential and the fire, I guess, in their bellies to go and attack some of those areas where they may not traditionally go.
I can see that you'd be a good mentor in that side of things as well.
Listen,
lots of fire.
I'm a working mum. I became a head very young. I was lucky. So I became a head at 31. I just had a baby. It wasn't really, the best time. I was heavily pregnant with my son, who's now 13. The head teacher at the time, I'd only been a deputy for 6 months. She went off, never returned. So I became the acting head. I was pregnant. So I was going to go off on a maternity leave. And so it was interesting for the school. It's an interesting time, because obviously I was the head and the deputy. And so they had to get some alternative leadership into the school. And while I was off on maternity leave, I think I would have been more than happy, I think, to go back and be the deputy. But something told me, crazy probably, that, my time is now and this is an opportunity.
But I don't know what you think, but I think being pregnant or having a young child makes you more productive.
Very productive.
You just absolutely focus in on what you need to do.
Absolutely focus in. So I've got a second child now. Oh, well, she's not a baby anymore. She's nearly 10. But I always say to, some of the working mums, I have a great team of assistant heads, and some of those are working mums, and they always ask me, how do you do it? You're always juggling and balancing 3 schools, children, everything else. I said, I'm lucky. I've got a great husband that is, there when I can't be there sometimes. However, I'm very focused. And as you say, Sophie, I've got these finite hours. I know I have to crack through the work, and I'm a very fast worker. So I think that's probably where I'm lucky in that way. But that's the Australian determination, We've got to get on with it.
So final question, you're hosting a TeachMeet in January, yes, which I'm delighted to be speaking at. And can you tell us a little bit about that and how people can get involved?
Excellent. Yeah, we're super excited. It's my first TeachMeet I'm organising, so I'm really excited about it. It's going to be called TeachMeet Resolutions. Obviously, it's in January. It's on the 12th of January. It's going to be held at Woodbury Down. Brilliant school, great environment. So what we're hoping that night, it's a Thursday night, 5 o'clock turn up, drinks available, of course, and drinks and nibbles, goodie bags. And obviously we've got some great people like yourself speaking. And the whole idea is I wanted this idea about obviously innovation, but we're all going to make resolution. We're all going to tweet out a resolution that night. I'm hoping maybe we do a podcast as well with some of the people that are there. Basically, you've been off for your Christmas break. What's the one resolution now that you come back? You might be inspired by some of the things you're going to hear from some of the presenters. What's the one thing now you're going to take away and action in your classroom to improve your practice, not just for you, but for your children as well? So that's what the sort of the key focus is that. We've got yourself. I've got Mark Anderson, ICT evangelist. We have Digital Sisters. So that should be fun.
They've been on the podcast as well.
Have they? Yeah. So I'm really excited to have them. We have Gary Kings, who's coming all the way from Devon. So he should be great. And we have Claire Brescia. So she's coming as well. So, yeah, if anyone wants to get involved, I've got a couple of my teachers I know that are going to get up and do their 5-minute spiel. We have, Jane Constance, who has written a great book called The Right Stuff. So there's a real range of different things that I think will appeal to lots of people. And I'm really looking forward to it. So we're going to be launching the tickets out on Eventbrite via Twitter in the next week. So, please join. Come and see us. And we've actually even got our own Twitter feed, TM Resolutions. So
okay, TM Resolutions. And how can people follow you on Twitter as well?
Please do. It's at mthomas2010. 2010 is actually my birth date, just to let you know that.
There you go. Well, thank you so much. We're going
you.
to speak to Neil now for a short bit, who is the Federated Assistant Head Teacher, Neil Melville, and also the Computing at School Master Teacher. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Fantastic. So awesome chat with Michelle. I suppose we can talk a little bit more in detail about some of the projects you're working on and that kind of thing. So just to start, for everyone who's listening, what's a Computer at Schools Master Teacher?
Right, so Computing at Schools came along to support the new computing curriculum, which was obviously very heavy with computer science. So when the guys looked at how we're going to teach computing in the old ICT curriculum, we had the control strand, which kind of got swept under the rug because a lot of people were a bit apprehensive about how they're going to teach it. And we had the old ASTs used to go into schools across various boroughs to try and support with that. And I think that when the new curriculum came along in 2014, there was a great shift here in the UK to start looking at not just teaching children how to use technology, but also how to create new technology. As we're having a massive influx of wonderful practitioners and wonderful software engineers and hardware engineers coming from outside of the UK, but we were not having homegrown software engineers here in the UK. So the CAS Master Teacher came along from Computing at School to help with CPD opportunities in order to push the computer science element of it. So our job is to, we are based in schools, our heads have to sign an agreement that we will be able to be released into the wider community and travel across England to actually support the strand and help teachers with confidence in order to teach this at school.
Fantastic, which is, definitely needed. So on that side of things, is coding important or is it a red herring?
I think it's really important. You know, it's been a bit of a journey in the last 2 years, because as soon as people were expected to start teaching this, there was loads of products that's kind of shoved onto the market, and some better than others. I mean, I think from CAS's perspective, well, from my perspective, and I think from a lot of my colleagues at CAS and other computer scientists that I meet, it is the thinking aspect of it, which I think is really important and which can be applied not only within a discrete computing session, but you can see computational thinking being used in other subjects of the curriculum as well. And I think that's what's really important. It's you're kind of giving children opportunity to fail, which I believe is a good thing, because you're also then, in order, if you're failing, and you keep working at something, you start nurturing that resilience, that perseverance, in order to work towards something and to get it right. And, you know, it's a huge endorphin release when you do actually manage to fix a program by using your logic and using your thinking skills. And, you know, in a lot of schools where I've been, I've seen children doing computing. A lot of times there's a lot of spoon feeding happening, where sometimes as an educator we need to hold back and facilitate those computational thinking skills. And then you can start seeing this happen in mathematics and various topical subjects and English as well.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we were talking about that before, about how some of the projects you do actually assist the literacy side of things as well, so through having to read instructions and so on.
Yes, no, I firmly believe that computer science should be totally taught in a cross-curricular way. Most definitely. I've been doing a lot of reading and I've been writing a lot of lessons and teaching a lot of lessons and helping a lot of teachers across the Federation to do it like this, because I think it's great to see how, if you are teaching within core subjects, if you're doing a maths lesson, you can see how an aspect of that lesson can unlock a computer science concept, but then vice versa, how the computer science and the hardware or the platform that you are using enables the children to then also work within literacy or mathematics or history. So you end up with a symbiosis between the two subjects, which I think is very, very important, especially at a time where, you know, these are three outstanding schools, and time is at a short, you know. So if you are able to do this in a cross-curricular way where you have that symbiosis, you know, it's two birds of one stone. It's a great concept.
And have you got any other colleagues out there that you really rate in how they're sort of applying that philosophy that you'd like to recommend that other people go and investigate as well?
Yeah, seeing someone like Phil Bagg, he's fantastic. He's got a wonderful website online called coded.org, I think it is, and you can follow him on Twitter as well. And a man with a host of ideas. I'll often email him every now and again, like, "What do you think about this? And what do you think about that?" and he'll get back to you and give you his opinion. And so definitely someone to look for. And he does travel around the country and do talks at various places. You can catch him at the CAS conferences. Birmingham does one, and CAS in London as well. So that's someone I'll definitely recommend to speak to.
Okay, great. And, well, before we started recording, we were talking about your old experiences with podcasting and how you might pick that back up. So maybe that should be your resolution for January. Is I've put you in it now.
That was great to talk to you about that today, because it was only when I spoke to you on email recently that I was like, I used to podcast, and that was quite a long time ago, and we were so inhibited by the technology at that time. And I emailed Michelle and said, you know what? I'm so excited because we got iPads and we can actually do a really, really great job now with this. And, we can start with a radio station, and we can maybe move into, video and doing news. And obviously with me, as I always, I started trying run before I can crawl kind of thing, because all the ideas start spitballing, and then, I want to move as fast as I can. But I'm looking forward to maybe doing a New Wave Federation radio show, perhaps, where we can collate news across our schools and broadcast it to a wider audience. But it is a fantastic literacy tool and a speaking listening tool as well. It's great to, especially like I know Michelle mentioned our enrichment project, how we could tie in, those exceptional writers and give them that extra bit of purpose with regards to their writing and literacy, and then give them that wider audience as well. This is a great thing about technology, is that I find that, I'm sure Michelle will agree with me as well, that our books look fantastic. Our children work very hard. You can see the progression. You can see them feeding back to the teachers, marking. There's great learning. But the only time that wonderful learning gets seen is by one of the SLT that come in, or Michelle, and then the parents on parents' evening. What the technology allows, and something like the podcasting will do as well, is that it gives you that chance to show that work to the wider audience, and that gives it massive, massive purpose. And children really want to excel even beyond what they would ordinarily do, to make sure, look, loads of people are going to see what I'm doing or hear what I'm doing. This has to be right.
Yeah, hence why you've got, YouTube stars that are absolutely killing it and also loving what they do as well, because that, it is about sharing your passion, I suppose.
Correct, yes.
So I think that's it for the moment. So thank you both.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I'm sure Michelle would like to say goodbye as well.
Been super. I did enjoy it. The mic wasn't too scary. I've just said that on Twitter, by the way, as well. It wasn't too scary, Sophie.
Perfect. Well, thank you both. Hi everyone. Before we begin our usual outro, we now have a bit of feedback from some listeners. If you want to join the feedback, you can do that via Anchor. So you just download the app and add your feedback as a voice recording, which I can add to Twitter or to the podcast. And also, you'll be delighted to hear that I have put a call out for anyone that wants to make the EdTech podcast jingle. We can use a variety of them. So if you have a school, or if you're particularly musically minded yourself and you want to make a amateur to professional and anywhere in between jingle, then that would be amazing. And I'm quite keen to do a bit of wordplay in there and some jovial musicality. So that would be great, and there's no real window for that. So as and when they come in, we can include those. And the outro music today will be from ICT Evangelist, who jumped on that call. But yeah, so please do get involved with the feedback. So looking forward to it. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, Sophie. Great to see you on Anchor with the EdTech podcast. Really interesting way you're going to use it for feedback for this show. So very, very interested to see how this works. How many people you can encourage to adopt Anchor as a form of feedback for the EdTech podcast. And as per usual, you're doing amazing things. So well done, and very much look forward to seeing how this develops. Bye for now.
Hi, Sophie. This is Stefan. and I really wanted to give you a bit of feedback, really. So yeah, really enjoyed the past few episodes, especially number 38 with Kazuya Takahashi. I thought he was just really fascinating and really interesting, and I really loved his sort of idea around sort of paying it forward, and he just sounded so much fun and had so much passion for what he did, and I thought it was really inspiring. I have to say, I've really enjoyed some of the talks and some of the roundtable discussions, although I don't think they're quite as successful sometimes as the when you're interviewing somebody one-to-one. Although it was really good, I really enjoyed the textbooks or tech kind of talk, and there were some really super speakers. I kind of missed hearing you and your interaction with the person that you're interviewing, and I always think that you have really good questions for these people. So I kind of missed that a little bit. But otherwise, really enjoying it. I love the Easter eggs. Keep them coming. Your one recently had me raving on the motorway, banging the dashboard to some stomping house music. It was quite a lot of fun. We're all doing good here. Life after Sutton Pod 16 is good. We're getting a few more people are making things, and we're working with them, and hopefully we should have some things to publish very soon. So I hope you're well, and hope everybody's good, and cheers. Keep doing what you're doing. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the show, feel free to ping me some feedback at the edtechpodcast@gmail.com or at podcastedtech on Twitter. You can also subscribe at iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher or Pocket Cast. Have a great week and stay out of trouble.